Hey, good morning. How are y'all doing? Welcome to CTC Auto Tech. Hopefully, you guys are practicing uh, the wearing a mask while you're in a public place. But anyway, I'm not in a public place. I'm in my own garage, so I can get rid of that. I guess before I get started, I just realized I am supposed to be in business attire. This is work at CTC, and I'm teaching, so I should not be wearing a camo hoodie or a hunting hat or something like that. I just happened to be out in the woods this morning, and I tell you what, if you ever get an opportunity, and this is an opportunity to do things that you don't normally do, um, but there's nothing like going out and sitting in the woods in the morning, and like around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and it was cold this morning, that's for sure. But anyway, and just sit and the sun come up and just watch the sun come up. And the world just comes to life. The geese are flying. Of course, I'm on a river, so I'm very fortunate. But the geese are flying, start flying around. The ducks are flying in on the water, and the squirrels are running through the trees, and just the birds and the stuff. And it's just really cool. We were a buddy of mine and I were out here this morning, and we were calling in some turkeys, and they were up on the other side, up on the cliffs on the other side of the river, and we just couldn't get them to fly across. So, but it's not something that I've been able to do, with teaching and everything. Just haven't had the opportunity in several years to do this, and um, just hopefully you are taking the time to get out. And my buddy and I, he showed up this morning, and he sat 20 yards away from me in another part of the woods, and I've never ever been able to call in a turkey, but he's pretty good at it. And we had him talking to us, but just couldn't get him across. So I guess it was too cold for them to fly this morning across the water. I guess they was afraid they was going to fall in the river. But anyway, I will be right back. Hang in there, just 30 seconds. Rigger standing there. Talk to him, Rigger. Where they at? Get him. Get him. Come on, get in there. Huh? Talk to him. Okay, I'm back. Got on my official CTC attire. Come here, Rigger. Look, come on. That's Rigger, right? Hey, buddy. He's likes to sit in the back of the Polaris while I'm working in the garage. This is where he likes to stay. Keeps an eye on things, and we're eye to eye. So anyway, give you a quick tour. This is my man cave, or whatever you want to call it. I've got quite a few projects going on in here. There's always something going on. That's the cool thing about when you spend your life, you learn how to work on cars. You develop a set of skills that you can use to fix just about anything. I mean, I built this building. I wired it, I plumbed it, put water in it. It actually has a little restroom in there. So did it all. Put the heater in. It's just, it's a set of skills when you learn how to work on things that you can use to do just about anything. That's my grandson's stuff over there, but we're learning how to ride a bike. So, got a automatic transmission I'm rebuilding for a friend of mine. Got a manual trans over there on the floor. That's for that, oops, wait a minute. One of these days I'll learn how to work this camera. That transmission right there on the floor, that is for that 340 engine and that 72 Challenger that we have in the school that we're working on. I hope to be able to get that home here pretty soon so I can get it together and get it running. If that happens, hopefully I'll be able to share that with you guys. I know that you were really interested. Charles and Christian were putting that together, and hopefully we'll get, and I know we will get an opportunity to share that. I don't want to say we hope I will, but anyway, based on yesterday, and we started ignition systems earlier this week, And some of this stuff should sound familiar to you. The prior knowledge we had back in engine mechanical, all this should start coming. When it should start coming to becoming familiar to you. Just think about what we talked about when spark has to happen at the correct time for a proper internal combustion process to occur. So anyway, this is a man. This phone. Let me see if I can do this. This is an old Yamaha outboard engine. This is a two-stroke engine. It still uses spark plugs and things like that. But hopefully you learned a little bit yesterday. Did some studying about spark plugs. It's just, the cool thing about spark plugs, it's like if you watch the video from Donut Media, that guy on there, it's just the cool thing about spark plugs is it's just one of the few things that's left on the engines, today's cars, back from the time the engine was invented. It's one of those few things that most of us can still do. We can still service them. We pull the plugs out. They may not look like they've changed a whole lot over the past 40 years or so, but they've, the materials that they're made of, the current that they're handling and all that. There's been a lot of small changes that aren't really noticeable to the eye, so to speak, but the spark plug is very, very precise. It is not something you mess around with. When you buy plugs for an engine, you buy what the manufacturer recommend, and you don't chintz on that stuff. There's a lot of gimmicks out there, multiple electrode plugs, things like that, and that kind of stuff is kind of reserved for the high performance market. But you need to do some reading, man. You put the wrong plug in an engine, and you can damage it. You can, you lose power and things like that. But you can do some pretty serious damage if you're not running the right spark plug. So I know some of you haven't done the lesson that was in there yesterday, and it was all about spark plugs, and hopefully you get to it. For those of you that did, I'm sure that you know more about spark plugs than you did before. So if you get a chance, get out to an engine, start pulling some plugs and looking at them. There's a lot of different things you can tell about what's going on in an engine just by pulling the spark plug. So if you look at this, I actually loosened this spark plug up. Always make sure you're using a spark plug socket. This socket has an insulator inside of it so that you don't crack the porcelain on a spark plug. Always make sure you're using the right one. I loosened this plug up a little bit ago. And yesterday, when you were watching that lesson, you should have learned something about heat range. It's funny when you reverse these cameras that everything appears backwards. I didn't realize that. Anyway, if you look at that spark plug, it's black. And that's an indication that something is going on inside that cylinder that's not right. That spark plug should be like a whitish or like a light tan color. If everything's burning, the proper air to fuel ratio, 14.7 to 1. But there's something going on inside this cylinder. And I'll tell you what, I want you to text me and tell me what you think is wrong with this engine, why that spark plug is running like that, okay? As you can see, you should have learned something about heat range. You can see the center electrode is receded way down into the steel threaded part of the chamber on the plug. And that is a very specific, that is a cold spark plug, cold range spark plug, and that's something that's used in two-stroke engines. You can see that this is an NGK plug. NGK makes very good spark plugs. Not always, some manufacturers don't like NGK in their engines. So like I said earlier, you just need to pay attention to that. There's the part number on the plug. And you don't always, just because that's the plug that came out of the engine, don't order that spark plug. You always go to your parts guide and look up and see what's applied, what the application is for that plug. So today's lesson is on triggering devices. I want you to spend some time, look up. The triggering device is a really important part of the ignition system. And in the next couple of days, we're going to start talking about like crankshaft sensor, camshaft sensors and things like that. And and ignition coils. The trigger device is what controls the spark. You know, it basically opens and closes the. I don't want to get into this right now, but anyway, I'm going to spend some time on ignition coils here, probably tomorrow. So, but anyway, the ignition coil is what makes the spark that goes to the spark plug, and what a trigger device does is it basically opens and closes that coil. It, you know, you have to, an ignition coil, this little device right here, you know, it takes about 20, in this engine, it takes probably about 30 to 40,000 volts to jump that spark plug gap. And that's what each one of these spark plugs has their own individual coil. And that's what a coil does. A coil takes 12 volts and turns it into the voltage that's needed. And a lot of your cars out there now today are running, they need 50,000 to 80,000 volts to jump a spark plug gap. So you got some pretty powerful coils in today's engines. You just think about, you know, the pressure inside a cylinder when it's running, and you got to make a spark jump across that gap. And, you know, with 12 to 1,500 pounds of pressure in there, it takes a lot of force, you know, to make that spark happen. So voltage is very key, and that's where the ignition coil comes into play. And we're going to spend some time on ignition coils, like I said, later in the week. But just really spend some time today trying to understand, researching, and what a trigger device does. You have points and ignition modules, and now you got crankshaft sensors, all those kind of things. But look it up, try to figure out the process, and I look forward to seeing your responses. Anyway, from my garage to yours, Ruger, where's Ruger? There he is. Ruger was already in the river this morning swimming. Man, was it cold. You don't act like it, do you? He was fine. He's got thick skin. Anyway, thanks for watching. I miss you guys. We'll get back together here soon. See ya.